Alright, so hello all. This will be primarily a YouTube channel in which I talk about psychology because I love psychology. And so a little bit about me. I am a undergrad in psychology and I'm planning on going to grad school. Yay, yay me. And so I just kind of wanted a place to talk about what I'm learning and what I like about what I'm learning. So let's talk about prosopagnosia. Prosopagnosia. I think that's how you pronounce it. Prosopagnosia. And so essentially this is a neurological condition, and cognitive, in which an individual has a great difficulty recognizing faces. So take it that you go to your family dinner, you see your parents, you're able to recognize that is your mom and dad, that is your aunt or uncle, or that is your cousin or sibling. But people with this condition are, uh, well, they do have great difficulty recognizing faces. I wouldn't say they're unable to, because it is a spectrum, but there are certainly people who have greater difficulties than others recognizing faces, but this is where a person, even when their eyesight or in general intelligence are normal, they are unable to recognize the familiar faces around them. So it's not that they don't realize they're looking at a face, it's just that they don't know what face they're looking at, basically. So I have to make this clear that this is not bad memory. This is not bad vision. This is a neurological condition. So many people with prosopagnosia can recognize other people through other cues. For example, things like body shape. If they're really thin or if they're a little rounder, they're able to recognize that. Maybe their hair color or maybe how they speak. There's oh, there's some people with accents that people with prosopagnosia can um, identify. And there's definitely posture. If they have a hunchback. There are other things that they can recognize that help them identify that person. So modern research does show that around 1 in 50 people actually develop some form of prosopagnosia, especially the lifelong developmental form. So this is a higher rate than most people realize. So there are different types to prosopagnosia. First is acquired, and what this means is that it forms right after brain damage. So this brain damage affects their facial processing region, most often the right fusiform gyrus. Sorry if I butchered that. Gyrus. Gyrus, maybe. And other regions in the brain, like the inferior occipital temporal cortex and anterior temporal lobe. So, typical causes may include things like stroke, as we said before, traumatic brain injury, brain tumors, things like Alzheimer's. Um, and the why is very clear in this because you can often see the damage on an MRI or CT scan. So there's another one called developmental slash congenital prosopagnosia. So this is where things get more interesting. So this often starts in childhood. and it occurs without obvious brain lesions. So this also typically runs in families. So it suggests that at least partially for the developmental propagnosia, it is genetic or neurodevelopmental. And the key thing about this is that brains with developmental propagnosia often look normal under MRI or CT scans. So why does this happen? Why? Question mark. So current research suggests that there are subtle wiring differences. So there might be altered communication between key face regions, rather than a big hole in the brain, like other if you other than like a brain injury, your brain is just not working right, man. Um, and so this suggests that it's more of a network level problem. Instead of one broken center, it kind of looks like a atypical connection between the face network, um, and often genetic, as we covered. Genetic and network brain thing. So, family clustering and family studies in general strongly suggest, as most, I feel like as most things do, heritable factors, but there's no really one face blindness gene. It's likely like genic, which means that there's many genes contributing to a little, and it's shaped by early brain development. Also, what's interesting is that this condition, at least the developmental side of it, often has overlap in people with ASD, autism, and recently also very comorbid with DCD, which is developmental coordination disorder. I'm just going to say develop, period. So it's hinting at a broader atypicality in the brain. Pretty cool, right? Pretty cool. Um, so what does this look like? So common experiences include failing to recognize familiar people. As we said before, oh, it's pretty sad. Even like friends, coworkers, even close family, unless there's like strong contextual clues. Getting lost socially, not recognizing someone, constantly reintroducing yourself. That's also a thing. Difficulty following TV shows. Like, for example, I do know someone with propagnosia who watched Game of Thrones and was like, hey, everyone here looks the same to me. I just see a bunch of dudes in armors and in armor and like just a lot of beards on screen. So movies, TV shows might be a little less fun. And sometimes in more extreme cases, difficulty recognizing your own face in the mirror. Um, in some cases, also trouble recognizing facial expressions, which is also pretty interesting, I'd say. Um, recognizing expression, age, or gender. So there are consequences to this, as you'd imagine, this would give a lot of anxiety to the individual. Like, hey, I don't know who I'm talking to. This might be embarrassing for me. There might be an avoidance of social events because, hey, what if I say something wrong? What if I don't recognize someone who's close to me? Many people spend years before like they realize they have propagnosia, thinking they just have bad memory, or like, they're just bad with faces before they even learn the word. So, the question: how is this diagnosed? There's not really a single like test to this. Typically, because like there is like developmental and acquired propagnosia. So first, there's a clinical interview. Clinical interview. Um, so you're just gonna check for any brain injury, stroke, neurological disease, and experiences. Like they'll probably ask you, "Hey, when did you recognize that you don't recognize other people?" Behavioral tests. There is the CFMT, It's the Cambridge Face Memory Test. There's famous face tests and tests comparing face versus object recognition. Um, so people with prosopagnosia typically perform poorly with faces, but fine with other objects, showing that the problem is like centered around the face. So there also is research on it. So like neuroimaging, so you can do research and clinical research on your um, if you think you have it. So an fMRI can show reduced or atypical activation in face selective areas. In acquired cases, like a structural MRI, CT shows like the lesions responsible. But again, not everyone has acquired prosopagnosia. So let's get into this. Is there a cure? Short answer, no. Yeah, so right now there's not really a straightforward cure, um, because it is like a condition that people have to suffer with. So management primarily focuses on compensating for that lack of facial recognition. So learning to rely on voice, hairstyle, glasses, jewelry, how people look, context. So like let's say like you're in an office, you're not going to expect your ex to be there. You're not going to expect your grandma to be there because that's where your coworkers are. So arranging social environments and asking people to announce their name when they approach would be pretty helpful. Psychological support, so therapy would help because it is. I feel like it'd be very anxiety inducing to not know exactly who you're talking to. So therapy for anxiety and social isolation, and having a good support system that you can like explain your condition to, and so this helps reduce misunderstandings. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much like the things available. Um, modern, modernly though, there are experimental training programs. So there are computer-based programs that try to train more like fine-grained facial discrimination, but the results are mixed. There's also research prototypes to help people recognize faces. But again, that's all experimental, so it's not like widely available. So yeah, that's the general basis of propagnosia. Um, so a lot of people who have this don't realize they have it. So they only think most people with this condition think, "Hey, I'm only bad with faces." Everyone struggles with faces. So upon discovering this condition, they realize, "Hey, this is likely not normal." Um, Many people with prosopagnosia can become very intelligent and successful. So this is not necessarily like a world-ending like condition, I'd say. The brain just processes faces differently. Yeah, the brain processes differently. So it is fortunately a little more common than you would believe. So around 2% of people have it, which is around the same amount of people that have red hair. Pretty wild, right? Um, and so, yeah, I'm not sure how to end this. Like, comment, subscribe. Okay, bye bye.